Hello, welcome to STEM with Mr. Duda. This is my series on quadcopters. It's a basic understanding of what quadcopters are, what they're used for, and they're not just the photography ones that maybe you've seen in movies and stuff. There's a whole hobby behind it, and it's a lot of fun. So stick around. All right, this is the third part of the series on quadcopters. And I do have other things in the playlist, so make sure to check them out. If you haven't watched the first and second part, please go back and check those out. I talk about what quadcopters are, what they're used for, and the different types. And the different types I think is really, really interesting. This is just sort of what I talked about, the different types and all that stuff. And I give you some really, really good ideas as to sort of what you maybe would be interested in. Today I'm going to talk about the parts and then how you can get into this affordably. So first of all, down here on the right hand side, this is uh, it's called a Diatone R349. This is the 3-inch quad that I have, and the what that means is that it would take a propeller that is 3 inches across. All right, so this is a pretty small one, but it has some amazing performance. I've seen some videos that supposedly they're going 120 miles per hour. Now, as I've mentioned a couple times, there are laws that regulate this, and you're supposed to get special permission from the FAA to go over 100 miles per hour. So I will not make a video of that testing it, but it's it has a lot of throttle, a lot of thrust, and it's able to fly exactly how I want it. Now, I will suggest, actually, I'm going to do a fourth part to this series on a simulator and sort of the comparisons as to why I think you should get it. So uh, keep an eye out for that because I think you should definitely start learning on a simulator. That's how I learned. This would be way too powerful for me to actually be able to yeah, to just fly. I would crash it instantly. So there is the frame. I'm hoping my mouse shows up. I'm pointing to it, but there is the frame. So the frame is the main part of this quadcopter. So the frame is what holds everything together. You can sort of see the bottom part that the wires are connected to and everything. That the blue little buffers or the for a better word, buffer, I guess. And then this plastic piece that goes over the top. That's the frame. That's the main structure of the quadcopter. Then there are motors in a quadcopter. There are 4 of them, right? Multi-rotors. You could have a helicopter with 1. You could have, I've seen ones with 3, with 5, with 6. A lot of them. Quadcopters have 4 motors. These are brushless motors. The cool thing about these is the outside of them spins rather than the central. This spins with the outside, but the bottom, like the coil and everything, is actually attached to the arm, and the outside spins around it, which is pretty cool. Which is really nice for especially tiny whoops when you're flying them through the house. If you get a brushless kind, you don't get as much hair stuck below the propeller. I'm sure your house is cleaner than mine. All right. There are propellers, which this one does not have. Then I'm going to talk about the order of these chips. So you'll see the stack of chips down right in the center, and you'll see the orange wires that are soldered onto the bottom one. That's the ESC. That stands for Electronic Speed Controller. And what that's doing is it's getting like directions. It's getting output from the flight controller, directions from the flight controller to control the different motors at different speeds, and it's able to send that uh, to each motor. Now, the first quadcopter I built had separate ESCs, separate electronic speed controllers, one on each arm. And that was all right. I mean, if one burned out, then I just had to replace one. I didn't have to replace, possibly the whole ESC with all 4. It was a little bit easier to troubleshoot and maybe back then, I don't know, maybe a little bit cheaper to fix. But this is so nice. The small amount of weight that it takes up, and they work really well as long as you get a quality one. Okay. Then there's the flight controller, which is right above that. You'll see like the red and yellow and white black wires soldered to that. That's like the motherboard. That's the brain. Um, yeah, I guess it's like the motherboard. It's like the motherboard and the main processor. Uh, it's the brain of it. It's receiving all these inputs and then giving outputs to different things, such as how much power each ESC should give to each motor. All right. It's also receiving information from the receiver and antenna. In this picture, I hadn't wired mine up yet. I snipped these and soldered a new one in and mounted it up here. But there's a receiver, and what it's doing is you have a transmitter, which is the controller that you have in your hand. It's sending out a radio signal, and there's an antenna, which I mounted under this arm currently, and that antenna receives that signal and sends it to the receiver. The receiver then sends what you're saying on those sticks. It sends that information to the flight controller, and the flight controller then does what you want it to do, as long as it's set up correctly. The flight controllers are absolutely amazing, and they sure have come down in price. You can get a really good one for, I don't know, $45, sometimes even with an ESC. So very, very good prices on those. The video transmitter, you'll see I have a camera out front. Now I have a cover on that camera, but it's a camera that actually records in HD. The third chip from the bottom is the other chip for that camera. So the sensor sends the signal to that third chip there, and that records onto an SD card HD, but it also sends the video to the video transmitter and antenna, and that's the top board. And what the video transmitter does is it sends out, in this case, an analog signal, so then I can receive that signal on my headset that I'm wearing. And it's pretty amazing. And depending on what you have, it can send out different amounts of energy, milliwatts of power. Now, you might need a ham radio license to do the higher powered ones, and I haven't looked into the requirements, like how much you can use without a ham radio license, because I am a ham radio operator. So I can operate this one up to 400 milliwatts because that's what it puts out. I have another one that is 600 milliwatts. You need to make sure that you're not interfering with other people, but you would have to look into specific rules if you're not a ham radio operator. But that sends out a signal, and you're able to receive it on your headset, which I'll talk about in just a minute. There's the camera. On the bottom, it's not on there right now, but you strap a battery to the bottom using this battery strap. And the battery, the type is a lithium polymer battery, and they call them lipos, and they're rechargeable. You do need to get a good charger for it, so it needs to be a smart charger. Balanced charger would be the best. It makes sure that it just charges correctly. Now, you want a good charger because these batteries can be dangerous. Okay, if they're charged really incorrectly, they can actually light on fire while you're charging them. So I use a really good charger, and I put them inside of a bag, like a zippered bag type thing that is fire resistant. It has a bunch of fiberglass on the inside of it, and it's on the concrete floor. So I don't leave it on the concrete floor because that's cold and that's not good for any batteries. And then you can add other sensors. You know, some of these will come with different sensors. For instance, I'm going to add a GPS. And the reason why I'm adding a GPS is not only do I want the location in case it goes down, but it will so I can recover it, but it'll also tell me how fast I'm going, my altitude, so how high I am, and it'll give me other information. One of the best reasons is once it loses signal with my transmitter, if it does, I have it currently programmed to just drop out of the sky. It turns off those motors and just falls. And the reason why is you don't want it speeding up, to 120 miles per hour or faster when it's falling. With those propellers going, that could cause a lot of damage. So shutting it off instantly and letting it drop is the best thing you can do. Yes, there's damage, but hopefully you don't damage people. or other things worse. With the GPS, it'll actually go to its highest to the highest height that I've flown it at, and it'll fly towards my home. It won't land itself or anything, but it'll fly back so I can then get the signal. It'll also give me an arrow that points back home. So if for some reason I got, disoriented and I didn't know exactly where I was, I could look at that arrow and it would bring me back. So it's pretty cool to have a GPS. You can have a compass if you want that arrow to be even better, and add in some of the autonomous flying, but you need to look into the legality of that. Barometers are put on there for altitude. They may be more accurate than GPS. I'm not totally sure on that. And then some of them have sonar, and the reason why they would have sonar is because they are able to see how far away they are from different things, and then they're not going to hit it. Now, I don't have that. I have full control over mine, but the DJI quadcopters, they stay away from objects so they won't hit them, which is pretty cool. Then you can add LEDs and make them look nice. It's good to have LEDs, especially if you're ever flying when it's getting dark. You're required by law to have bright lights on it. So I will be adding LEDs. The biggest reason is I think they look cool, but I also want that visibility. You can even put different cameras on it that are low light cameras that, like on a winter night, it's almost like it's daytime. So look into those. I don't have any yet, but I definitely want one. So those are the main parts of the quadcopter. Now, getting into quadcopters, you will need to buy some things, okay? And you need to buy a transmitter. So, for instance, here is my transmitter. It's Tyrannus FR Sky. I might be reversing that. It might be an FR Sky Tyrannus, but it's an X9D minus the plus 2019 version, and it works really, really well for multiple quadcopters. All my quadcopters, not that I have a lot, but I can fly them all on this controller. I just select a different model and it's awesome, and I can add different modules on the back of it. For instance, I have a module on the back of mine that allows me long distance communication. So supposedly up to 6 miles away, I would be able to communicate with my quadcopter, and there's an additional antenna that's on there. So nice one, but they're expensive. Like this one, you're looking at probably $220, $230. If you just want to fly a tiny whoop and that's all you're going to do, you're going to fly it in your house, maybe around your yard, or I'm going to give you a better option, okay? But if you're looking to really get into this and you want to learn really, really well, upgrade to better quadcopters, you want a good transmitter. And then you also want a decent headset. Now, this is a Fat Shark headset. It's an analog headset as far as I know. I have never used a Fat Shark, but everybody seems to love them. It gives you a very immersive field of view. There's also a new DJI digital headset where you can actually fly in HD, because the analog signal that we're looking at while we're flying is not as good as the HD quality. It's nowhere close to it. So being able to fly in HD would really be amazing. I've heard issues with supposed latency, so there's a little bit of a delay. And if I'm flying really quickly near things, I don't want any delay. Also, personally, I don't want to spend the money yet on the headset, but one day I would love to. It's just not, in my budget right now. You could also buy a package with everything included, which I'll show you in a second. But before you do any of that, I would definitely suggest buying a simulator. You could buy Velocidrone. That's what I started on. I wouldn't suggest it, though. I really like Liftoff now. Liftoff is amazing. I have some videos on Liftoff. It is such a cool simulator. It looks pretty good. It looks a lot better than Velocidrone. And what I really like about it is it tracks my races. Now, maybe Velocidrone does that too. I didn't see that option. Maybe Liftoff is just a little bit more user-friendly, or it was more intuitive to me. But I love Liftoff, and one of the Another thing I like about Liftoff is there's a guy, Joshua Bardwell, that I watch on YouTube, and he does product reviews and he flies a lot of quadcopters, and they have his yard in it. And the nice thing about that is I can see him do a trick, how to do it, and then I can go out in the same space and fly it. Now I know it's a simulator, it's not exactly the same, but it helps me to better understand, am I doing a decent job of this or not? And then obviously bringing it to the real world, that's where I'd really, really test that knowledge. So if you are looking to really get into this, you know that you know, this is for you. I would buy a nice transmitter and then buy liftoff. Okay. I ended up buying Velocidrone and then using an Xbox controller, a wired Xbox controller, as long as you have a controller that works on your computer. That works pretty well. The problem is those controllers reset themselves to the center. Transmitters, the throttle doesn't reset to anything. It stays where it is. So that was a little weird. So I was really happy to get the transmitter, and you can connect this to the computer and then control your simulator. Now, if you're like, you know what, I don't have the money for any of that. I don't want to spend that much on a transmitter right now. I just want to see if this is something I like. I totally understand where you're coming from. And so what I would suggest is getting the Emax Tiny Hawk 2 ready to fly, or that says RTF, indoor racing drone combo. Now, it doesn't just have to be indoor, okay? But what it comes with is this headset, a controller, a quadcopter, which is the Tiny Hawk. It's the Tiny Hawk 2, which runs off of either 1-cell batteries or 2-cell batteries, which is absolutely amazing. Now, switching between the two, you do have to do a little programming change, so you need to look up some videos on YouTube on how to do that. Otherwise, I don't know, maybe it could cause damage. I'm not sure. They supposedly fly amazingly well. The biggest downfall that I had when I was learning with a Tiny Whoop was I hit a point decently quickly where I wanted more power and I wasn't able to get it. I had a Beta FPV 65S Lite, and it's a brushed motor Tiny Whoop, which it's fun, but like it was really limiting in my learning. Switching to a brushless motor was night and day, and being able to have a 2-cell battery in there to give extra voltage, that's double the voltage, I would imagine the thrust is going to be a lot better. So this is a really cool thing. I think it's like $175 for all of it, and you could end up using this headset for another quadcopter. So if you upgraded to something like my 3-inch and you bought a new transmitter, you could still use this headset. Now, I don't know how good that headset is, but you'd already have it, and I guarantee you this is so much fun, especially for flying inside, which is not that easy, or just flying around your yard. You'll love it. It'll be awesome. And I suggest buying from GraysonHobby.com. I bought my 3-inch Diatone R349 from them, and I'll tell you right now, I was amazed at their customer service. They have so many good YouTube videos, but they also email me back right away. Very personable, very caring. A lot of this stuff is coming from China, and you're not getting much customer service. They offered it for the same prices as from the Chinese suppliers, but they are located in Georgia, and their customer service is amazing. So if you live in the United States, I would suggest checking out GraysonHobby.com. Or I do want to give a shout out to Race Day Quads. Thank you for your advocacy. That he's been talking about raising some questions with the FAA about a possible new ruling that I don't need to get into that right now, but Race Day Quads is definitely a website that you should check out. So if Grayson Hobby doesn't have it, or maybe you want to see your other options, please check out Race Day Quads as well. So that's going to conclude my video today. The next video I make is going to go over some other places that you could buy it, as well as some of the laws pertaining to it, and just to keep you protected. So thank you so much. If you know anyone that would benefit from this, please feel free to share it, and have a wonderful day, everybody.